of the world. I love to welcome you to our uHoo webinar on green and healthy certifications for built environments. I know this is going to be a great session because we have three excellent speakers with us. And I like to keep things on time. That's why those of you that log in at 8 o'clock, maybe that's the German in me, even though there are not so many other things that are typical German about me, I guess. By the way, my name is Matthias Gelber. I usually work with uHoo on facilitating their very interesting and excellent webinars. So it's my great pleasure as well to do the same with you today. And I think we have quite a good number of people from Europe. For sure, all of you are, or most of you are going to watch the European football tonight, me as well, even though the Germans will be playing at 3 a.m., which will be a bit tricky, but there we go. That's good fun. But today we will focus on healthy and green building certifications. What is happening? How are they coming together? What case studies are out there that are giving us a good insight in possible return on investments? What are governments doing? How are these different standards, initially green building certification, more and more healthy building certifications, how are they coming together? We have three amazing speakers, but let me first start off with the first poll question to get us all into the groove of things here. I will pull it up and launch the poll number one, just to give us a good idea of where we are. This is multiple choice. You can choose as many as you want. What are the challenges or barriers for a building or a workplace to pursue a green and or healthy certification? Couple of different items there. Is it unavailability of sustainable materials and equipment? Is it the additional responsibility? Is it management support or buy-in? Is it the perceived cost? Is there a lack of data and information about the connection that is the main barrier? Is there a lack of integration? Or finally as well, the final point there, let me blow it up so I can see it. Is there a lack of clear data on ROI and benefits that might be a major stumbling block for us to actually push this forward to the next level? Keep clicking. We have about 45% of you that are on this webinar today already finalized your multiple choice here. We've got one leading answer at this point in time, but it keeps changing. We have now 64% of you that have participated. Maybe we can push it up beyond 70, and then I will finalize the poll. Keep going. Another couple of people, please click your multiple choices, and then we will share the results with everybody else. Okay, we're getting there. I'll give it a couple of more seconds, and then hopefully we are there with 70%. Yeah, we need, there we go. We've got 70% now of everybody that's on the call that has actually given their verdict. Let me share it with you. What is the number one? Here we go. The lack of clear data on ROI and benefits. Interesting, right? 58% of you have actually chosen that as your priority barrier that we need to overcome. And then just closely followed behind that is management support and buy-in. I guess if we have good data on ROI and benefits, it's easier to get the management support, right? And then the perceived cost of pursuing. So that again could be overcome. If we have clear ROI, then it's worthwhile investing the money to achieve the green and healthy certification. And the good news is today we have a couple of case studies that will shed some light on this. Then very closely followed, half of you have as well said lack of data and information about the connection between buildings and health and wellness. So the clearer definition of what results in healthier buildings and more wellness for employees, and how is that resulting in benefits stroke ROI for businesses. So I think those are exactly the kind of things that we'll be looking at and that we will be covering in some of the case studies that we have today. Let's get straight into it. And we will start it off with Anne-Marie Aguilar, all the way from London, virtually with us today. And I think you have great weather today in London, right? You
Finally, yes,
earlier.
after a few days, we have some sunshine.
Yes, good. Maybe, you know, the German team will meet the English team in Wembley in a couple of days. Huh? Could be a possibility. Yeah. Anne-Marie Aguilar is a WELL AP and the Senior VP for EMEA of the Institute, the WELL Institute. And we are really pleased to have her here. And she's got some great case studies that she'll be sharing with us today. So over to you, Anne-Marie.
Great. Thank you, Matthias. I'm just going to share my screen and give you guys a chance to see the presentation. Let me know if you guys can see the full screen yet. It's coming.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so really interesting polling questions where we got to really see where some of the fear about diving into these certifications. So I'm really glad to be able to walk you through some of these discussion points. I think it's really important just to kick off with the understanding that really our physical, social environment and our habits have a greater influence on our overall health than our genetics and our medical ability to address medical facilities. So think about that. It's your physical and social context and the behaviors that you have that really have an influence on your health. So for all of you, I'm sure you're familiar, the WELL building standard has been in use since 2014. Believe it or not, in the last few months since COVID, it'll be a year in July that we've already doubled to 2.7 billion square feet of project area around the world that's looking at these 10 concepts and facilitating WELL certification. And I think the premise here is how do we really understand the value of these programs? So I wanted to walk through a couple of case studies. These are projects, you know, we're very interested in coming back into buildings, not immediately after construction, not immediately after the award of the certification, but 1 to 18 months, a year, 18 months after occupation. So we can really try and understand the profile of how these buildings are operating and how people are feeling in the space. And some of the goals you'll see change throughout most of these case studies, but you'll always see this theme of making staff happier, trying to support employee health, and always in tandem with a sustainability approach. We really feel strongly about this parallel approach to sustainability and health and well-being. So what did they start focusing on? This is Arup's office in Boston. Really important here, this idea that lighting has a huge impact on our health. And this is not only for productivity impacts, but really understanding how lighting can help your sleep-wake cycle. And obviously, if you're sleeping better and you're not being disturbed at night or having the influence of artificial light during the day, which can detract from your sleep at night, this can have a huge impact on mental health and productivity. The second area that Arup was really keen on focusing on is food and making sure that staff had a place where they could have some what we call mindful eating, which is, you know, being able to step away from work, eat in an environment where they can socialize. There's an enormous amount of research that talks about the impact that we can have when people socialize during meals. They often eat slower, there's conversation, there's an impact on mental health. And this idea that we can design these spaces into buildings has a huge impact on getting people away from sitting at their desk all day long. The third area is also finding spaces that are adaptable. And this means that we can find spaces where they could also host an impromptu yoga session or a mindful meditation session. So really understanding how can we design spaces to mitigate stress and change the use of that space. And what are some of the comments? The comments coming back is that the lighting has absolutely improved. It gives the office a completely different feel. And the results are that you're seeing people use the kitchen much more often for work and rest. The lighting has often made people feel more energized. And the impact of addressing the acoustic issues has felt that the office is quieter and more productive. So it's great to see this. And when we look at these real positive outcomes from this position, we're looking at, there's a 90% increase in employee satisfaction, 30% increase in collaborative work. We can really understand that these have tremendous impacts in terms of creating this ROI baseline. 65% of employees have fewer sick days. I mean, all you need to do is really take that number and times it by the loss of income for a business when you look at that type of ROI. And again, talking about this huge impact that we have on lighting when it comes to our sleep-wake cycle. 42% of employees, just with the enhancement in the lighting, have had better sleep quality. So again, what we're trying to do here is trying to create material statistics and baselines that we can really start to understand how healthy and sustainable buildings are having an impact. So these are, again, a series of statistics that we found through the research that we've been doing, that buildings that are well certified have a positive impact on the lease rate, positive impact on building value, and again, really high percentage on occupant satisfaction. The second case study I'll run through is with Landsec, which is also a large developer here in London. Again, really proud to see a coordinated effort between WELL and BREEAM. And some of the focus areas that they wanted to look at, again, lighting, indoor air quality, because we know that fresh air and ventilation, especially in a post-COVID world, is absolutely at the top of the priority. Looking at the layout, and again, one of the huge focus areas we're seeing in healthy and sustainable buildings is the procurement of materials that have low VOCs. We're seeing huge positive reactions from the staff, happy with their air quality, happy with their lighting, feeling that the new layout of the office increases productivity and has a positive impact on workplace culture. And I guess what's really starting to give us a lot of that data now, hard data, is the Leaseman Index. And the Leaseman Index has been used around the world, and we're starting to see that the WELL buildings are actually falling within the highest percentage of successful and happy buildings. So that's a great correlation. The third case study I wanted to run through is with a showroom in Hong Kong, Hayworth showroom. And we'll see their top goals are around indoor air quality. Again, we're coming from a space in Asia where, in Hong Kong and parts of China, where air quality is a real issue. The second feature is how do we promote ergonomic furniture? And then again, how do we improve mental health and reduce stress? What I love about this space is its focus on materiality, and you automatically can see this when you look at the photographs. They focused a lot on air filtration. And this is back in 2017, so way before COVID, but focusing on PM 2.5, VOCs. But look at the sort of material selection, the views to the outside, the biophilic environments. This is about promoting a culture of wellness. To start to see some of the reactions of the space, you can see that people feel that it's got minimal distractions. The natural material help people feel creative. We've got a community area for relaxation. People feel that this is providing a really positive environment for not only the people who work in this space, but visitors. Just to give you guys, like I said, a bit of an understanding of where we are today. We're over 2.6 billion square feet in 97 countries. We're working across 3 of our strongest programs at the moment: the WELL Health Safety Seal, which is about getting buildings open; WELL Certification, which is single asset certification. And now, in a post-COVID world, we're having more and more discussions about entire portfolios of buildings. So it's been a really exciting time for us. And I just wanted to highlight one thing, which is that we have We're now starting to see governments adopting WELL certification. So the first Prime Minister's office in the UAE has now been WELL certified. That has presented to us a huge range of opportunity that we're now seeing coming through. So the Dubai police has just has registered 500 of their buildings for the WELL Health Safety rating. The university and the Dubai municipality are also following suit. So we are seeing now this huge transition from, moving from single asset to portfolio, moving from, customers that are corporate offices, moving now to governments that are looking at this for sort of minimum compliance standards. So with that, I think I've made my time. I'm going to stop sharing and pass it back to Matthias. So thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Anne-Marie. Excellent, amazing overview. The last example that you provided about Dubai, the UAE, reminded me when I was at the COP meeting in Bonn, the police force from the UAE was getting an award there for their commitment to net carbon zero. That was a couple of years ago. And now the transition to the healthy building as well. It's great to see that with government leading. And I was as well fascinated by those case studies that delivered a clear ROI. I mean, we had 20% productivity increase of employees, 65% of employees, fewer sick days. I mean, that is huge. That is massive ROI. And you were talking about the Circadian lighting. I went to a BPO office in Manila. They're running 24/7. And the guy who was running it told me, I have installed Circadian lighting, and believe me, it works, because he flipped it around. And then the employees were telling him, boss, I'm struggling to sleep. What's happening? I don't know what's going on. So he was actually, he was testing it, and he said it really works. So these are things that can have an amazing positive impact. So great. Thanks so much, Anne-Marie, for that excellent input. We will move over to Eddy now. Eddy, all the way from Hong Kong. Actually, G1, our final speaker, is as well based in Hong Kong. So we have Europe and Southeast Asia. Eddy is the head of green labeling at the Hong Kong Green Building Council. And we are so fortunate to have him here because he's a veteran of in this field, from green building to healthy buildings. Eddy, we're really looking forward to your sharing. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Let me share the screen. So here it is. So in the next 7 minutes or so, I will talk about the convergence of green and wellness certification. As the previous speaker has introduced to you, we have WELL Building Standard, which is one of the topic-specific assessment tools. In fact, there are many topic assessment tools like Reset, which is a data quality standard assessing aspects like continuous monitoring of buildings. And on the resource side, we have the EDGE rating tool from the finance sector, and they are concentrating on the use of energy as well as water. And also, if you want to focus only on energy, then we also have Energy Star, which can be used to certify homes, certify buildings, as well as tenant spaces. So let me talk about the other side of the assessment tools, which is comprehensive assessment tools. By its name, you will know that they are assessing full scope of the performance of buildings in terms of both environment as well as other aspects like well-being. One good example, well-known example, is the Lease system, which is used internationally. And on the national side, say in the Japan, they have the comprehensive assessment system for built environment efficiency called the CASB. And in the UK, you know, the Building Research Establishment has a family of rating tools for different buildings. And in the domestic sector, they are now using the Home Quality Mark, which is also a comprehensive assessment tool. Let's say how we view well-being and health within the rating tool of that are assessing comprehensively. Traditionally, they are viewing the health and well-being as the numerator of a quotient like this one, Q over L. L is the environmental load, whereas Q is the building quality. So that means when you build a building, inevitably, you may destroy some parts of your local environment. For example, you cut down the trees, some of the habitats may be destroyed. And inevitably, when the buildings operate, it will emit carbon. So it will have some adverse effects on the earth. So in terms of both the global and the local environment, the buildings will inevitably have some loading. So that's the concept. We try to maximize the quality of the building, and we try to minimize the environmental loading. Also, in the example of the UK home quality mark, you will see in the assessment system, they will tell you your well-being, they will tell you your environmental footprint, and they will also tell you your cost of operating your home, for example. We also have the concept of a quotient that we try to maximize the numerator while minimizing the denominator, which is the cost as well as your environmental footprint. And in the case of Hong Kong, we have the local environmental rating system called the Beampass, Building Environmental Assessment Method. It has been used for over 20 years, and this diagram shows the latest version in which we have one aspect called the health and well-being. Similar to the other system, we also view it as one of the numerator, whereas we try to maximize. And if we trace the history, we will find that in the past, we emphasized more on disease prevention in the past. And whereas nowadays, we migrate to some more proactive approach by trying to generating health and well-being. So let's look at the past of our rating tool. In the past, say in Hong Kong in 1990s, there were a relatively high number of cases of Legionnaires' disease, which is a kind of disease caused by a bacterium living in the fresh water. So by introducing some best practices in the design of the air conditioning and the water supply system, are working to try to push the industry to design the buildings in a better manner. For example, introducing air bricks in the condensate drain of an air handling unit. That is one example. Later in 2003, we had the Sas epidemic, which originated from China and spread to the Northern America, like the Canada. And especially in Hong Kong, we found that the disease was transmitted vertically within a high-rise building through the drainage system. That's why in our rating tool, at that time, we introduced some new practices of designing the floor drains. So by having this W-shaped trap, we have the water being replenished continuously by the sink or the basin, so as to prevent the floor drain, the U-trap from being dry by having a continuous flow of water. Nowadays, we also emphasize disease prevention, but at the same time, we introduce more proactive measures. As we all know, prevention is better than cure. Instead of just looking at curing the disease, we look at how to make ourselves healthier. For example, one of our latest best practices incorporated in our rating tool is to have biophilic design, meaning that we emphasize the building should be connected to the nature by some design techniques. For example, having skylights, for example, by having some greenery in the skyrise, in the high-rise building. Within the high-rise building itself, for example, we may have a podium that have a large amount of greenery, so as to encourage the occupants to have more connections to the nature, even when they are within the building. Another example is to encourage physical activity. For example, by designing the staircase in an attractive manner, we encourage people to use the staircase instead of the elevators when they have interfloor traffic within the building. Another example is when we design the office spaces, we provide standing workstations so as to encourage the workers to stand when they are working, so as to prevent people from being immersed in sedentary activity. In that way, that will help prevent chronic disease, well, which is very common among those office workers. Now, having looked at the current status of our waiting tool, let's look at the future. In December last year, we tried to benchmark our waiting tool against a recently published standard, which is one from the European Commission called the Levels Standard, which is a common framework of core sustainability indicators for office and residential buildings. We try to compare our waiting tools against this new standard to see what insight we can gain from this cross-country comparison. Here is a glance at the contents of this EU framework. You can see they have the traditional key indicators within the sustainability circle, like the global warming potential, the water, like the indoor air quality, etc. At the same time, they also emphasize life cycle costs and also introduce some new ones, such as value creation and risk exposure, which are less commonly found in waiting tools worldwide. So this poses 4 questions. First, is the building outcome as predicted? We rate the building, we have a result, but is the actual outcome as predicted? And also, is the building outcome sustainable? That means, is it a one-day beauty, or can the beauty last for long? Second, in terms of the indoor air or the indoor environment, is a constant environment suitable? For example, the user preference may change throughout the day. And for example, in an open plan office, you may have different usage pattern in the morning, during lunch hours, as well as in the afternoon. Thirdly, how much value is created by the certified building? That is the economic side. We seldom evaluate the economic value. No matter you are talking about LEED or the other waiting tools, they seldom have this kind of evaluation. Fourthly, can owners continue to bear costs in future, especially when you introduce newer features into the building, like skywise greenery? You know, the greenery will require regular irrigation. For example, when you introduce water-cooled air conditioning system, the water will need water treatment. That will add to the cost of the running the building. So can owners, are they aware of the cost, and can they continue to pay the cost in the future? So the insight is we need more in situ monitoring and feedback. That means, for example, sensors. We need to plant sensors in the building and obtain continuous feedback. And we need more devices to help us to have optimized and personal control of the environment. And we also need to evaluate life cycle costs and have value analysis. We can evaluate at design stage, say your saving in tax, for example, when the government has incentives. We can evaluate the earning from the renewable energy feed-in tariff. We can evaluate our savings in energy and water use, saving in maintenance costs, etc. But how about rent and sales value? We cannot evaluate as a designer, but we can find insights from previous study. One example is a study carried out in Hong Kong about the price premium of Beampass certified residential buildings. They found that the certified green buildings have a price premium of 4.4%. This is one example where we can get insights from previous study. And we also find that we need to change our concept. In the past, we had the quotient concept, whereas maximizing the numerator, the building quality, whereas minimizing the denominator, which is the footprint or the local environment loading. But as we have more advances in technology, we find that we can, in future or even in the near future, we can have zero environmental footprint, meaning that we have zero carbon emission or even carbon negative. So this quotient concept will no longer work, because when you have zero denominator, then the quotient value will become infinity. So that brings a new concept. For any buildings we build in future, we need to have the concept of generating three qualities at the same time. So all these are on the numerator. They are no longer regarded as the denominator. For example, future buildings will have zero carbon emission, or even they can offset the carbon. And future buildings, they will no longer destroy your local environment. They can even enhance the biodiversity of your local environment. So they are no longer regarded as a burden. And so our future concept would be, we need to produce buildings that can generate qualities on these three aspects. So last but not least, let me share you a sentence, a golden sentence. If we start to build whites today, every building can be wellness creating as well as climate positive in the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Eddy. Wellness creation, carbon offsetting, mitigating, and loads of biodiversity. That's a great vision. And 4.4% higher value of those properties that were certified in Hong Kong. That's great news. Excellent. I think, again, encouragement for the questions that came up in the poll at the beginning. You know, there is the ROI, there is the value creation that we have seen already from the historical data in the market in Hong Kong. Excellent. Now I will hand over to Ji-won Choi. She is lead Well and FitWel AP and ambassador and a project engineer at BEE Incorporated. We are looking forward to your insightful presentation.
Thank you. Do you see my screen?
Perfect.
Cool. Okay. My name is Ji-won. I'm a project engineer at BEE Incorporations. I'm originally from Korea, but currently based in Hong Kong. And my experience comes mostly from lead and well projects on the commercial side. So today I'll be sharing more of my experiences based on what I've seen and heard in the industry so far. So if you're here today, So if you're here today, you're probably here to understand what kind of certifications are available in the market, especially in APAC, and how they can benefit your project. And I think 10 years ago, it was just predominantly LEED or the local certifications created by the governments that were taking the lead in the market. And nowadays, I think LEED and WELL are very popular, becoming very, very popular these days, especially WELL and the WELL Health Safety Rating, especially during the since the onset of COVID. And a lot of clients, private clients and multinational companies do seek a LEED or WELL Health Safety and Reset for themselves to differentiate with other competitors in the real estate market. And in spite of all these different certifications in the market, green building certifications like LEED and healthy building certifications like WELL and FitWel, they don't have to necessarily be considered in silo. A lot of times they do go hand in hand, but the key difference is that for green building certifications, they do focus on more on resource efficiency, so looking at energy consumption and water consumption, whereas healthy building certifications like WELL and FitWel, they specifically look at the enhancing the experience for occupants in the buildings and enhancing the health and well-being of company staff, for example, through design and policies. So the difference is that you'll be, for example, for LEED, you'll be looking at the energy consumption, whereas for WELL, you're looking at the quality of the interior environment through such as lighting and circadian lighting and having access to quality daylight. And the overlap is that both categories of certifications aim for a long-term sustainability. And I think there are overlapping concepts such as indoor air quality and thermal comfort. And you're also looking at both certification types are also looking at materials health. So looking at using low VOC furniture, low VOC materials, and using non-hazardous materials. So those are some commonalities across the two different types of certifications. And then I think the key takeaway here is that long-term sustainability is not just about the environment, protecting the environment and having efficiency, but also the S and G part of ESG, so the social and governance part. So I think S and G part of ESG comes not from just having those kind of wellness policies for staff, but also having some kind of tracking mechanism to monitor the building performance through data. And with that, and having that data, you can evaluate not just the performance of your building, but you can use that to set the baseline for calculating cost savings and ROI. So let me share with you two case studies today that can help you understand how you can quantify the impact of sustainable buildings through data. So when we talk about the health of a building, we cannot not talk about indoor air quality because it's one of the important direct indicators of building health performance. And in this case study, we looked at two retail stores of similar size, both in China, one in Nanjing and one in Suzhou. The difference is that the store on the left, so the Nanjing store, is using a lower efficiency filter in the HVAC ventilation system, whereas the store on the right uses a higher efficiency filter with a MERV 13 rating. So here you'll see that the outdoor air quality, the outdoor PM 2.5 levels are pretty much the same for the two stores. But the difference is that when the outdoor PM 2.5 levels peaked around this time as shown in the boxes, the high efficiency filters were much more efficient in filtering the outdoor PM 2.5 compared to using medium efficiency filters by almost 3 times. And you can see here visually that the high efficiency filter can filter about 50% of outdoor PM levels. So this is one way that you can understand health performance of buildings through monitoring of indoor air quality data. And another case study is about energy. And this case study here, we're looking at using energy meters inside projects. So here we also analyzed a portfolio of retail projects, also in China. And we've compared the energy consumption of Lease certified projects versus non-Lease certified projects. So from this table, you'll be able to see that Lease certified projects use a little less energy compared to non-Lease certified projects. And once you multiply that kilowatt hours per square meter per day by the local utility costs, you will be able to generate about 15.2% cost savings per year. And that equates to 257,000 RMB per year. And considering that for retail stores that we work with, they usually have a lifespan of 5 years. So if you multiply that by 5, you're getting somewhere around 400,000 US dollars. So that was one way to look at the energy, quantifying the impact of green buildings through energy data. So just to wrap up, and speaking of costs, which a lot of you are very interested in hearing about today. So when most people ask about the cost of doing LEED, for example, they are thinking of the added cost for construction. And according to USGBC, the average cost is only about 1 to 3% of the total project's total budget cost. And you'll be able to get an average return on investment within 3 years post-construction through the operational cost savings that you can get from energy and water, which you can track using monitoring devices and mechanisms. So, and as for WELL, I think due to the nature of the certification, it really, because it really focuses on health and wellness, there is no specific exact quantitative figure for making the business case. But the idea is that you're investing in people for return on investment. So here in this slide, you can see that in terms of the operating costs, a company typically spends 1% on energy utility bills and 9% on rent and operations, and 90% is on paying the employees' salaries and benefits. So I think if you think about it this way, you can leverage your investment on certifications to generate a higher productivity for staff, a higher satisfaction rate among your staff. And I think once the clients are able to understand the business case from this perspective, and once they're able to understand that and invest in these wellness certifications, they can use these to enhance their wellness strategies and use it as a leadership platform, and also to attract and retain top talents in the industry. Thank you.
All right, great, excellent, G1. I think that was a very important point at the end. I mean, you gave great case studies on energy savings with the LEED versus the non-LEED, but then looking at the fact that 90% of your operational cost in average, I mean, there might be a little bit ratio different in the Philippines than in the US, but employee cost or benefit is huge. And then with the 65% fewer sick days that Anne-Marie gave in one case studies and 20% higher productivity, that return is huge. That is even more than the energy efficiency. So I think we are squaring the circle here, and this is maybe the starting point for discussion. A lot of people at the beginning were asking, we need more data, we need more ROI. We even had one question from our friend from Menarco in the Philippines: how can we convince more developers to go for green and healthy building certification? I think we have the answers, right? What would you guys say?
I mean, I would definitely jump in, and I think Menarco is a great WELL client, so really happy to have you guys on board. But again, it's trying to present the facts and to ask potential developers and even end users to go away and think about how much time and money is actually sacrificed during wellness and sickness events, and what is if you spend just a little bit of time looking at what are the health insurance costs for a specific group of people, it's really easy to really understand and to go through those health claim data and just find out what are the top 3 things that our health insurance claims are being related to. Most of them will be around ergonomics. They'll be around mental stress in the workplace, depression. And we know now that we have tools that we can actually design into spaces that actually have an impact on those 3 areas. So I think it's about really exactly what the previous speakers were saying, especially the last slide, to talk about really putting those numbers into some sort of a context to really understand, if you have this amount of employees and they're only sick 5 days out of the year as opposed to 15 or 20, which could be some of the norms in some of these locations, what does that cost savings bring to a company? And the cost of designing in healthy options will be probably 1% of that cost. So it really comes down to that, having that conversation and being really transparent with the end user. Like, tell me what your HR stats are. How challenging is it to attract new talent? How challenging is it to keep them on board? These are, these groups have those numbers at their disposal. It's about bringing them to the design discussion as opposed to leaving them in the silo of HR.
Yeah, I think that holistic angle is very, very important. It came out as well in Eddy's presentation. Previously it was about disease prevention, but now we are looking at holistically at things. One of the questions, Eddy, was that, is there a chance that in the future we will have one standard that covers all? And from what you were sharing, I think you've already tried to get there, at least closer to that, in Hong Kong, with the inclusion of the health aspects to what was classically a green building standard. What do you think is the potential there for the future?
I think
to bring this all together.
Yeah, I think different rating tools will have different purposes. Even though we have health and well-being within our rating tool, we cannot totally replace another health or wellness certification, because when we have a limited number of credits or best practices that can be included in one single menu. We cannot make the menu very thick. Otherwise, the people, it will be overwhelming, and the people will perceive the rating system as too complicated. So we have to simplify the number requirements when we have intention of incorporating wellness as well as environmental protection, and even economic evaluation, social evaluation into one single rating tool. We have to make a compromise. Then we have to trim down the number of credits. Then there are limitations. We cannot be too detailed, for example, in wellness. So if you try to focus really on wellness, then go for example, well building standard. That's the way. If you try to have a comprehensive assessment, then go for LEED or Beampass. So I think they all have a value to exist in the market.
All right, great. That was an interesting answer. We need the diversity of the standards to really deliver exactly what we internally or the market needs. We have a question for Yi-Won based on the 90% spending on employees, 9% on rental, and 1% on energy. Vincent, and I think Vincent asked as well about lighting earlier on. We'll come back to that in a minute. How many percentage of employers or building owners invest based on this? How many will take that argument as the convincing them to really go ahead with the green and healthy building certification?
I think I think the client needs to understand that it's an investment on people, and a lot of multinational companies and global companies, big companies, they really care about their employees, and corporate sustainability and corporate wellness programs have become a very huge part of the company agenda. And using, very global certifications like LEED and WELL, I think businesses can use those kind of certifications to leverage their leadership platform.
All right, great. Vincent asked as well about lighting. I think his comment was, usually in the region, people prefer the bright white light to keep people awake. But what I saw was actually an outsourcing center in Metro Manila. They were using the lighting that's adopted to the human body, but it was a foreign company that was running the place there. Anne-Marie, have you seen any other uptake of that in other parts of the world? The lighting, the Kardashian lighting system?
I think that we've definitely seen the lighting supply chain start to respond to circadian lighting in a way that allows it to be much more affordable and achievable. And we've seen this really be taken up globally. I think the answer is always in the design side, to design using natural daylight as the first opportunity, both on an energy saving side and on a health side. But I think, once we've ruled that out and there's a certain amount of that that's not possible, whether it's for deep plan offices or areas that don't have access to natural light, I think we need to look at circadian lighting, and we need to understand that that in itself has a huge impact. And once you start, and I think we talked about the fact that, customers are actually trying the reverse psychology, which is having it and turning it off and seeing the impact. I think there's so many case studies out there that show that this benefit of actually normalizing employee sleep-wake cycle just has a tremendous effect on alertness, productivity, happiness, reduced depression, reduced mental stress, that the cost return is going to be like probably tenfold.
Yep. There is as well a question for you, Anne-Marie, on the health insurance impact. Is there any data that you can provide or case studies on that?
I know, I was just going to respond to Alexandra about that. Unfortunately, I don't. I did do a very deep dive case study during my time at R.P.E, and it was all anonymized, but we did actually look very deeply into our health insurance claims, and it was very obvious that those were the top 3 indicators that did come back from our health insurance claims. But unfortunately, that was the year that I transitioned from R.P.E to the IWBI, so I wasn't able to continue that research program. But we really had a tremendous support from our insurance provider, which was AXA, and they were really interested and intrigued by diving into this data, because I think it provides insight across all the different parameters. So for example, the fact that we were able to find out that the #1 health insurance claim across the UK for our company at that time had been musculoskeletal issues, we immediately put in an option within our health insurance program. So AXA said, look, let's forget about people trying to get a GP approval for them to go see someone in the chiropractic or physiology space to recommend. They said, let's just go directly to a physiotherapist and sort the problem out. The minute they took out that one block that really sort of delayed people from getting the right help, the insurance claims for the following 3 months reduced by like 23%. So what's really important here is, the long-term impact is that we design spaces differently, but the shorter term impact is that HR and health insurance companies can really understand what that top issue is, and we can start to address it. A lot of that information is at our fingertips, and we just don't really use it enough. So I'm sorry that I don't have a case study, but I guarantee you, if you walked into any company and said, look, we don't need to pick people's names out when we look at this, we're going to look at it in an anonymized way, but tell me in the last 12 months, what have been the top 10 claims that have come out from our audience, and let's figure out how we can support them.
Yeah, I have seen that for the Philippines. It's high blood pressure, diabetes, typical lifestyle related diseases linked as well with food and activity. And it's an ESG issue as well, environment, social governance. Your employee wellness is a key critical material issue for most office-based organizations. So I think we will see a lot of activity there. We have a couple of questions. Some of them are asking for case studies, hospitality industry, hotels, hospitals. I will pass that on to Eddy and G1 if you have anything there. And if you can as well quickly comment whether you think there is a difference between, let's say, Southeast Asia, Europe, and North America in terms of the willingness of people to pay for green and healthy building certification. So maybe G1, you can start off if you have any case studies like that, and then over to Eddy, and then very briefly Anne-Marie before I have to wrap up.
I think I can tackle the second question about the regional differences. So I would say that since WELL and LEAD, those are developed from the US. So I think sustainability market is generally more well accepted in North America, and they are still ahead of Asia. And I think Asia is still catching up. But in Asia, I would say that China is very strong. Hong Kong is also becoming very strong. I think China is very strong because there are so many real estate developers and there are so many properties. And I think there's also a change in the mindset of the Chinese developers. I think people are more willing to invest in LEED and WELL certifications for marketing and also for corporate leadership, CSR programs, aligning with their UN SDG sustainability agenda, things like that. So I think there's a lot of potential in Asia. And I would say, yeah, besides China, Korea, Japan, they're also, that market is also growing because in Japan, people do really, in real estate, they do really care about the health and well-being of people. And in Korea and Japan, there are a lot of apartments. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for wellness there, especially during the COVID situation. And Southeast Asia, I would say they're a bit small. The market's still small, but they're slowly catching up.
All right, great. I think I only have time now for Eddy to give his quick comments, but I'd like to ask Anne-Marie, Eddy, and G1 to go into the Q&A section and answer the questions by typing in. There are a couple of questions on hospitality industry, on restaurants, schools. Maybe Eddy, any you can share very, very briefly in 1 or 2 minutes?
Yeah, I think I can concentrate in the case of Hong Kong. We can divide questions into new buildings and existing buildings. For new buildings in Hong Kong, we have a semi-mandatory policy. That means if the new building developers want to get post floor area concession, meaning they have to, they want to build a larger area for the building, they can use Beampass, the green building certification, as one of the conditions to apply for the post floor area concession. That means that would be a huge financial incentive. So in Hong Kong, 1 out of every 2 private sector buildings will participate in green building certification due to this incentive. But for existing building, it's entirely different. It's very difficult to push or promote the certification. So, but nowadays we feel that as ESG becomes more important, the building owners will try to find something to report to the industry when they report their portfolio performance, the asset performance. So they now have more force to or more motive for them to join the green building certification for the existing buildings.
All right, great. So please try and answer the Q&A questions in writing. We have 2 more things before we finish. We will see a quick video from our host, uHoo, about the new Aura, and then we will do a very quick exit poll, and I will as well type in any answers that I can find. So can you please play the video for us, Lilette?
Tenants are worried about the air they breathe in their workplace due to COVID-19. Science has shown that poor indoor air increases the risk of coronavirus surviving and spreading through the air. Your tenant's safety may be at risk if they are exposed to poor air quality, resulting in worsened allergies and asthma, and may lead to long-term illnesses. Tenants who don't feel safe and comfortable are not likely to stay. There's never been an easy way to deal with problems in the air, until now. uHoo Aura continuously monitors all the important things in the air, so you know exactly what to do to improve it. View real-time and historical data of all your locations and manage them from one dashboard. Get alerts if any of your buildings exceed safety limits, so you can immediately take action. You'll get tips on what you can do to reduce the risk and ensure the safety of your tenants 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. uHoo. Take control. Ensure safety. Reduce churn.
Now we have our final poll where we will share with you the option whom you want to connect with. It's multiple choice as well. Which speaker would you like to get in touch with? Anne-Marie, Dr. Eddy, G1, anyone from the uHoo team, or even myself. Wow. Would anyone be interested in getting in touch with the green man, Matthias? Just kidding. Great. I have really enjoyed today. I learned a lot. I found we had excellent, amazing case studies. Sorry, we couldn't answer all of your questions, but I will try and ask the uHoo team to follow up with any of the questions that were open from the original registrations, and as well from the questions that were answered, specifically the case studies. And yeah, thanks from those who are commenting now. I will end the poll, and then we have that information where we can follow up later on with all of you guys. And Anne-Marie, you're the most popular. And here we go. But excellent day today. I really enjoyed it. Thanks everyone for the great participation. And we will share the presentation slides so you can dive deeper into the case studies and the information. And yeah, thanks to the comments, somebody commenting impactful and certainly digestible and management friendly. That's great. I think we had excellent examples of return on investment. That's how we can convince more developers to do it. The benefits are great, both environmental efficiency and wellness and productivity. There's no reason not to do it anymore. Go for it, guys. Thank you so much. And goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
And yeah, Lilette just asked me to invite for next webinars. We have another one mainly targeting the Philippines, the new DOLA legislation next week. Get in touch with uHoo. And then we have one end of July focusing on airborne virus transmission and risks. So see you then, again, latest end of July. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.